Dad, you wrote a book that I would put in your top 5 a few years. You've written 41, 42?
I finished 42 yesterday.
All right, there you go. Yeah, top 5 is Breakout Churches.
Yeah.
Is a great book. Loved reading that book. I've read almost all of your books. You've written so many the last year or two that I've still got a couple in queue.
Believe me, I haven't read them all either.
So we're going to talk about kind of 4 common reasons most churches aren't breakout churches. And in doing so, we'll talk about some of the ways that you can be a breakout church. But yeah, top 5 book, Breakout Churches. I forget the year you wrote that. I want to say 2004.
Be close.
Somewhere in there. 2002?
Yeah, it was my last Zondervan book. So it was right before I went to Lifeway. And of course, at the time would have moved to B&H, the publisher of Lifeway. And so 2003, 2004, somewhere in the early 2000s. And just this little word, that was not the original name of the book. The book was Good to Great Churches, based upon Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, with permission from Jim Collins to use it. Recorded the book, the only book, Sam, that I have ever done the narration on. And then got a note from his lawyer that, no, you can't use Breakout. You can't use Good to Great Churches. And they said, we're going to have to record everything because you kept saying Good to Great Churches, Good to Great Churches. And I said, you have to bring in a narrator. I am not going to sit for 4 days and re-record that book. They said, we understand. So they brought in a narrator. That was a big disappointment.
I've done one narration as well. I think that's a common author experience is I've done one. I'll never do it again. Bring the professionals in.
Yeah. Which one was yours?
Church Revitalization Checklist.
I'm glad you did it. At least you have a book that is on Audible. I don't.
Yeah, I do listen to a lot of audiobooks. We should probably look into that.
Well, all of my books are on Audible, but none of them are me. There's always someone talking about his children and his wife, Nellie Jo. It's not me.
That's actually really, really funny. All right. I want to jump into this episode, talk about breakout churches. Yeah, get the book. We'll put the link in the show notes. I still think there's some availability on Amazon, but we also want to thank our sponsor, Upward. Upward is now doing running. We talked about pickleball the last time we talked about them, which is awesome. Upward.org/pickleball.
Exactly.
But they also have this new running program. You can do a 5K, which, what a good way to capture your community.
Oh, yeah.
Not literally. You're not going to let them run into a net or something. You're not, capture your community.
Gotcha.
Like you're bringing them into a race and you have a chance to interact with them. It's a very simple start. They've got a really easy process. They'll walk you through the whole thing. That's what I love about Upward is, it's like, hey, I know I can connect with my community through running, through pickleball, through sports, whatever those sports may be, whether it be adults or children. I just don't know how. I know that they'll connect. I don't know how. Well, Upward's the how. This is like, how do I do that? This is how you can do it. So go to upward.org/run coach, upward.org/run coach. Go look at their program. Tell them we sent you. It will benefit everybody. So we thank Upward.
Before we get to the main content of this podcast, I'm looking ahead to the last point. I won't give it right now, but I'm looking ahead to the last point. And I'm thinking about a conversation that I had today with a global Methodist pastor. And that pastor is taking seriously our encouragement to have at least 4 outward focused events or ministries a year. And so what they're doing is they're doing 2 of the Hope Initiative. So 2 30-day emphases with the Hope Initiative. They're doing Invite Your One, which is our resource. And guess what they're doing? They're going to call Upward for the 4th one. And they look at that as something that's, they said, doing with Upward's more than just having one little thing. I mean, it's bigger than that. I said, we can give you credit for 2, but keep Invite Your One and the Hope Initiative.
Indeed. We're grateful for Upward. Great outreach tool. In fact, one of the best that's out there. So that's one way to have a breakout is start reaching outward, but more reach outward and upward. How about that connection? Reach outward through upward.
There you go. That's what we've been doing. And who was it who said onward and upward?
I don't know. And I don't even know why our sponsors send us copy anymore because we don't ever use it.
Well, we know what they want us to focus on.
I know. It's boy, they're awesome. This is the one thing I love about all of our sponsors. We're all friends. Like,
Yes.
and you know, they're great business partners. So anyway,
We love to be with them.
We do. So what stops a church from having a breakout? So it's always good to like diagnose problems, right? So this is part of what we're doing on this episode.
This isn't an autopsy. It's more of a physical examination of why you're feeling badly.
That's a good way to think about it. Lack of leadership development. So if you are not developing leaders, people are not going to know how to move forward because people move forward through leadership. Haphazardly finding your way without leadership is pretty rare. I guess it can happen, but it's pretty rare. This is why the world has leaders. This is why God set up governance the way that he did, not only in the church, but also in nations,
Families
and school systems. If you are not developing your leaders, that can be one of the biggest reasons you're not having a breakout.
And if you're not developing as a leader, it's another reason that you might have a breakout. Not developing leaders, not developing as a leader, both of them. And many times, one of the things I love about Church Answers, among many other things, is one of our primary roles is to develop leaders, help develop leaders, come alongside them and help develop them. And so breakout churches, the leaders are not developing other leaders, or they're not looking to further their own development.
So let's give another how. Get into our silver group. Mm-hmm. So we have silver, gold, and platinum. Gold would be great too, but let's just talk about our silver membership level.
The entry level.
The entry level. It's what, $100 a year or $10 a month. I mean, it's very inexpensive. And part of what silver has is this. You like to say a consultant in your pocket or whatever. I forget your marketing.
No, y'all told me to stop saying that.
So, we did, yeah. Yeah, we did, because it sounded so weird.
Don't talk about a consultant picking your pocket.
No, there's a forum. Church Answer Central is like this community where people get in there, they ask questions 24/7, and it literally is 24/7. People always interacting with each other. You're in there, I'm in there, Matt's in there, Brad's in there, Chuck's in there. Our whole team is in there, interacting with these issues. One way that you can just develop yourself as a leader is like, how do I do that? Well, just go ask a question that you don't have an answer to and get the answer from people that actually know what they're talking about and do what they tell you to do. And that's what Church Answer Central is.
They'll give you answers. They'll point you to other resources. They will interact with you. They'll go back and forth with you. I can't imagine a resource that would be more valuable in leadership development to a pastor than Church Answer Central. And the price is just wonderful, wonderful.
Indeed. All right. Second reason that a church may not experience a breakout is because of an unbiblical understanding of church membership. Now, this was a movement mid-2000s, late 2000s. Regenerate church membership, it was kind of a rallying cry among certain circles, not every church.
You heard it more among Reformed churches than otherwise.
You did, but they had a point. Even though I'm not particularly Reformed myself, I remember at the time going, there's some validity to what they are saying. Now, for a lot of churches, this was just inflated membership rolls. And people are on a list, and you need to make sure that, you're genuinely and properly reflecting who the membership is. But for me, the part of the argument that I think they were making that had the most validity, it's like, clean up your rolls. Okay, that's fine. And if there's that one person that's going to, cause a stink in the church, if you kick them off the rolls, then just don't do it. But and by the way, your rolls are also your best prospect list. So if you're at a church and you're like, man, we've got 4,000 people on the rolls and we've got 40 people in attendance. Well, that's over 3,000 people that you can now call to grow your church.
If they're alive.
If you have that many people on your rolls, there's likely some that are still there.
For sure.
Numbers still valid. But I think when this rallying cry was kind of surfacing, the part that resonated with me the most was just proper church discipline. and, making sure that you hold your members accountable. You did this from the positive perspective because you talked about having high expectations.
That was in 97. It somewhat preceded the big trend of regenerative membership, even though you can say regenerative membership can go back centuries. But in terms of its emphasis, it preceded that. And I caught as much flack for high expectations, which was people come in and you should expect something of them in a church, than I did any book that I've ever written. And it was basically, okay, so we're saved by grace, but once we get to be a member of church, we have to do works. Yes.
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 Yes. So, and you put those, so that's more of the discipline side. The church discipline side is more the negative approach. It's more a punitive, I guess. Not everyone would use that term, but, and the high expectation side is more on the front end and more the positive, but you put those two things together. And I think you've actually got something really, really helpful to your people is like, hey, this is what we expect you to be doing. This is what the Bible says you should be doing. And if you're going to be a part of our body, you should do these things. And if you're going to just blatantly disregard them, we're going to say something about that. We're going to have to do something about it. I'm not saying, you kick out everyone in the church that's not tithing. That's probably not the best approach. But I am saying have those high expectations and hold people accountable to those expectations and watch your church grow. Mm-hmm. You will experience a breakout.
And we sometimes call that front end formative discipline. In other words, it's not, you're not getting on to someone, if you will. And then the other part we call corrective discipline. Formative discipline is this is the way we think you should be shaped by the Holy Spirit as you come a part of the church. It's how he is going to form you. Corrective discipline, you're not forming right. So we need to make some corrections here. And it's not always kicking someone out of the church, but it is raising the bar. So that's what we talked about.
I remember sitting down with some leaders from my church in Indiana, my first full-time church.
Mm-hmm. I remember it well.
Well, it ended up ending. It had some rocky moments. You have to understand, I was 26 when I went there, like just about to turn 27, and I had been married for 2 weeks. So I may not have been the most experienced of pastors. And they took me on. They took a risk, and you may say, why would a church take a risk like that? I said, well, they had 4 splits before I got there. What kind of church hires an inexperienced punk like you? The church that's as desperate as they were. So, but we had this big membership role. And I remember sitting down with the leaders, and this was during that regenerate church membership sort of thing. And I'm like, man, I got to make sure that, our roles are clean. I got to make sure that, we're holding people to high expectations, got to make sure everything is really properly and in order, because, the people that are really pushing this regenerate church membership, they're going to come after me if I don't do something about this. I do remember having those thoughts because I was blogging back in the day. Like, they're come after me. So I sat down, and in fear, I started going through all these, and I sat down with my leaders, and I remember some of them. They're like, and they would, we worked through the whole list. It took several nights. I think we did it after Wednesday services, and we just sat down, we just worked through them all. And I remember there was one person in this little committee that I formed. And every time he got to a name that he did not like, we had individual sheets for people. Like back when it wasn't a database, an electronic data, individual sheets. He would take that paper, crumple it up, and throw it in the garbage can. And every time he did that, I was like, he just cast someone into the lake of fire. I cannot believe he did that.
Wow. Well,
I've never told that story. It just popped in my brain. I've got this image of, and I won't say his name. No one would know who he is anyway. I've got this image of him just crumpling up these pieces of paper that were now former church members. I guess we just kicked them out of the church because they went in the garbage can. So that's probably not the right way to do it. Just a heads up, not the right way to do it.
I commend you for getting a group together and working through it.
It was fun. Aside from the occasional crumpled papers and people in the garbage can, it was a lot of fun. Are they reprobate if they get put in the garbage can? I don't know.
They're a bunch of garbage, is what they are.
Yeah. Anyway, so marrying this concept of high expectations with accountability, and part of that being church discipline, and on the front end of church membership class, which we've talked about ad nauseum on this show. All of that's important. And it's one way that either you will not have a breakout if you're not doing these things, or will have a breakout if you're doing these things. But let's move on. The third one is something that you wrote about in Simple Church, another good book, an unclear purpose. So
let's give credit where credit's due. Rick Warren popularized this more than anyone else with Purpose-Driven Church. Many people think of him with Purpose-Driven Life, which was the 35 million seller. Purpose-Driven Church was 1.4 million seller. But from my perspective, it was more impactful because it gave the theme to churches. You're here to do something, and your members are here for a purpose. What are you doing about that? And I know people will criticize his baseball diamond and some of his worship services and things that happened subsequent to the book coming out. But the thing about it is, it got us thinking about what is our purpose as members of a church. So that, I know you were about to say something else, but I had to give Rick credit where credit's due.
Fair enough. Yeah, I was just going to go right to your book, but there is no doubt that Purpose-Driven Church was I will go out on the record saying I thought it was a great book. And I know this is an unpopular opinion, obviously with the sales. I think Purpose-Driven Church was a far superior book than the Purpose-Driven Life, although no knock against Purpose-Driven Life.
I agree, because we have an ecclesiology that is so pro local church that just appealed to us. And a lot of people, obviously, I think it's getting closer to 40 million these days, who have purchased Purpose-Driven Life were impacted by that. But you change the church, you change the world. You change an individual, you hope they stay okay.
Yeah. It's a great word. Having that clear purpose, that clear vision, that understanding of who you are is so important. And it can vary from church to church. And I know everyone knows this, but like, we're a neighborhood church for the nations. That's what we call ourselves at West Bradenton. That whole idea of being a neighborhood church, that's a lot of churches. In fact, of any one category, it's probably the biggest category, but not every church is a neighborhood church. Not every church needs to be a neighborhood church. There are regional churches that, need to be big regional churches. There's downtown churches that need to be downtown churches. There's rural churches that, need to be those rural churches. You need to know who you are. I was talking with Josh King, our other co-host on this show.
Mm-hmm.
He was talking just about how it took him a few years in ministry, and this is a private conversation. So I'm just, sorry, Josh. Sorry, not sorry. He was telling me how it just took him a few years to realize just who he was. He's like, you know what? I love being in Texas. I love my suburban location. I feel like I'm in a really sweet spot with the size of the church. And he's like, I don't need to be anybody else. This is who I am. And he's quite content and doing very well at his church. And sometimes you just need to know that about yourself. It's not just purpose for the church. It's this understanding of who you are too and how you fit into that purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And as a leader, that is so important. And you know what? God could call me to Alaska. No offense to any Alaskans who are tuning in. I don't have any desire. I have a desire to visit your state. I would love to go visit. Do not have a desire to do ministry there.
I miss my grandchildren because I wouldn't see them that much.
It's just too cold and snowy and whatever. Not for me. Not my jam. I love where I'm at. I love Florida. I love the warmth, and I like the fact that it doesn't snow here.
And I love Southwest Florida in terms of regions within Florida.
You nailed it. And I know that about myself. And there are people that would think the opposite. They would I would be miserable where you live, Sam. I would be miserable.
What's wrong with them?
I love the Great White North. I love the Alaskan wilderness. I love
people who would be miserable in Southwest Florida.
They're out there.
Okay, we need to go back to regenerate.
Well, yes, we're not talking about regenerate followers of Christ and then the reprobate. That's not what we're talking about here.
Oh man,
I would like to make a joke, but I'm not going to. Anyway, yeah, you got to know who you are. You got to know your purpose. And then the last thing, and this is the most important thing, and this is kind of the whole purpose of Church Answers. This is the whole purpose of why we do this podcast, is to get churches thinking outwardly. And to have that ongoing evangelism emphasis.
Therein lies the greatest challenge of most churches today. They know it's one of the most important things. Jesus' last will and testament was Acts 1:8. You will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, to the ends of the earth. when he met with his followers right before that, the Great Commission, the go and make disciples of all nations, Jesus was clear. Hey, I'm going to leave you this mission. And this mission is to reach people with the gospel. And yet Satan's loudest whisper is, you can get busy doing other things. This one is not that important. And out of 350,000 to 400,000 Protestant churches in the United States, almost 90% of them seem to be listening to that whisper. I don't mean to say they're satanic. I just mean to say that that is now where most churches in the Western Hemisphere are today, or particularly, let's just say North America rather than the Western Hemisphere, because there would be exceptions there. But outward focus, that's what it's all about. That's why we are here. And you can't do anything else unless you're reaching new people with the gospel. It's kind of like looking at the birth rate of the United States and take away net immigration, and we're declining in population, where you can't be alive unless you're being born. And a church is not alive unless it's seeing new birth again and again and again. I could go on, but I know I've said this so many times.
Well, time is up, and
we
want to thank our listeners. I want to thank everyone who tunes in on a regular basis, or if you're brand new. Dad, we did not quite realize how many new people we had recently. And, we've shared before, but number 8 leadership podcasts in the world, not just church leadership, number 3 in that category, number 8 overall. And grateful for all of you who make that happen. That's not us. That's you.
And I also, before we go, I just want to give a shout out to what's going on with Church Growth Services, who's just one of our great sponsors. Mike Stottlemyre he's setting the woods on fire with showing churches how to get funds for ministry, for buildings, for debt, for deferred maintenance. The list goes on and on and on. He's been in the business probably as long as anybody that is active in the business today. And so I'm grateful to him. Just want to give him a shout out too. So Sam, I'll turn it back over to you.
It's a good shout out. We certainly thank all of our partners that we have at Church Answers. And we want to thank Tyndale for providing the NLT large print Pew Bible. It's a fantastic Pew Bible. It's in that easy to read 10.25 font.
Mm-hmm.
And that extra 0.25 is what makes the difference, Dad. It makes the difference.
I can read them.
There's some science behind that. I know. I don't know how they came to that. There's got to be something that's like, it's not 10-point font, it's 10.25. Listen, I love our Pew Bibles that we have. We actually have these Pew Bibles,
and you give them away. We give them away. Ministry.
So here's the deal. I bought these Pew Bibles before they were sponsored. So full disclosure, I was a believer before they sponsored this show, and we give away Bibles. So we have a line item in our budget where we've just over the years figured out how many Bibles are going to get taken from. And people like, they'll come to me and they'll confess their sins. They'll be like, I took a Bible. I have to tell you, I feel so badly. Like I wanted one. I love this Bible.
Go give $1,000 to the church and you will be forgiven.
Yes, exactly. And I tell them, it's okay. I forgive you. If you listen, it's a great ministry. You not think of like a Pew Bible as a ministry, but it is. So I tell my people, take one. If you take it, promise me you'll read it. Take a Bible, give it away. I have people do that all the time. They're like, I love the New Living Translation. So go give one to your friend. Well, here, have one of our Pew Bibles. So every year we're replacing actually almost every month we're replacing Pew Bibles, kind of cycling through them. This is the one we use. So it's excellent. I highly encourage you to get it. By the way, the New Living Translation is the most preachable of all the translations. Totally. All of them have their place. Many of them are good. I preach from the NLT. The Pew Bibles are the NLT. This is the way to go. So how do you get it? Go to church-connect.com. There's a dash there. Church Connect, that's their church group at Tyndale. So church-connect.com. is where you can get this and many other resources. So thank you all for tuning in to today's episode of Rainer on Leadership, your online home for leadership lessons. Give us a thumbs up on the YouTubers. Give us a rate, review, and subscribe in your favorite podcasting app. And if you're binge listening, well, we'll see you in about 30 seconds.